The Cloud Observer. Chapter 1. The Useless Man. Wei tilted his head skyward, letting the village elder's admonishments dissolve into morning air. Sunlight fractured through cloud layers, casting prismatic patterns only visible to those who understood how to look. Around him, Peaceful Valley stirred with human industry's insistent percussion. "Dishonor your ancestors with such idleness!" The elder's final words echo, vibrating with unspent frustration. Wise weathered fingers registered the subtle shift in oak bark beneath them. The ancient tree had witnessed 37 seasons of this particular reprimand. Its roots remembered waters that had not flowed in 3 decades. Its branches spoke histories humans had willfully forgotten. Farmers approached along the footpath, their conversation halting at the sight of Wei beneath his customary tree. "While we break our backs," one muttered, deliberately audible. A younger farmer bent, fingers closing around a smooth stone. The projectile landed with precise indifference near Wei's outstretched leg. Wei shifted fractionally, acknowledging neither stone nor the hand that cast it. Perception required stillness. Understanding demanded patience. These truths remained invisible to those moving too quickly to notice. "More clouds today, Master Wei." Liu's small voice carried across the morning air. She approached with that distinctive uneven gait of childhood, dark eyes missing nothing beneath their unruly fringe of black hair. "The clouds have much to say today," Wei answered, voice textured by infrequent use. "They look like fish scales." Her head tilted, mirroring Wei's posture. An apt observation. Fish scales warning of water's dominion. Liu settled beside him, unwrapping a cloth bundle. "Father says these dumplings are too misshapen to sell. Would you trade for those herbs that helped grandmother?" Wei accepted a dumpling, the weight and warmth authenticating its existence in ways words could not. "I gathered fresh feverfew yesterday when the spider webs held morning dew at their centers." "How do you know when plants become medicine?" "The same way you recognized fish scales in the clouds, by learning to see what is actually there, not what you expect to find." Liu considered this, her small face solemn. "Father says cloud watching is the most useless pastime ever invented. Yet he accepts my herbs when his mother's joints pain her." No bitterness colored Wei's observation, merely recognition of contradiction. "Why do you want to be useless, Master Wei? The other children say you could grow the valley's finest rice if you tried." Wei finished his dumpling before answering. "Have you watched the village oxen lately? Notice how they strain against the yoke, eyes dulled by repetition." Liu nodded. "Then perhaps you've seen the old forest monkey, how he moves through branches with precise intention, taking only what satisfies immediate hunger. The one that steals fruits from windowsills?" "The very same. Tell me, little Liu, which creature determines its own path?" "The monkey," she answered finally, then added, "But people aren't monkeys or oxen. Indeed, but people can choose whether to accept the yoke or climb the trees." From the village center came the unexpected resonance of ceremonial drums. An assembly gathering. Wei secured his scroll inside his simple hut before moving toward the village center, positioning himself where shadow met sunlight at the gathering's edge. The crowd parted for Magistrate Lin, resplendent in formal blues signifying authority. Beside him stood a stranger whose crisp attire and precisely trimmed beard marked him as imperial rather than provincial. His gaze swept the villagers with the calculated assessment of someone accustomed to measuring resources rather than meeting neighbors. The quality of light shifted as clouds stretched fingers across the sun. In that liminal moment between brightness and gloom, Wei recognized the convergence of patterns, atmospheric and human, both gathering momentum toward inevitable collision. 2 storms approached Peaceful Valley. One carried on mountain winds, the other on imperial decree. Both would break upon them with unexpected force. Chapter 2. The Productivity Proclamation. "Uselessness is a disease that threatens to destroy our village," Magistrate Lin proclaimed, his gaze finding Wei at the crowd's edge. Midday heat pressed against the gathered villagers. Dust motes hung suspended in the humid air, stirred occasionally by collective breath and shuffling feet. "Our esteemed provincial inspector Zhao has brought word that our tributary payments have fallen short 3 seasons running," Magistrate Lin continued. The words resonated differently across the gathered crowd, inducing straightened spines among officials, tightened jaws among farmers, carefully composed neutrality in merchants' expressions. Wei remained still, measuring the magistrate's declaration against the western sky. Cloud formations continued their ominous gathering, invisible to those whose attention remained earthbound. Inspector Zhao stepped forward, the leather of his official boots connecting with stone in precise percussion. The Emperor's new agricultural initiatives require complete participation, he explained, unrolling a detailed map with practiced ceremony. Our first project will be expanding the irrigation system to the western terraces. His slender finger traced proposed waterways across the parchment. Teams will be assigned tomorrow. Work begins at dawn the following day. Wei studied the inspector with detached curiosity. Unlike Magistrate Lin, whose irritation with Wei manifested as predictable exasperation, this man radiated something more dangerous, the absolute certainty of one who has never questioned the value of what he pursues. Their eyes met briefly across the crowd. The inspector paused mid-sentence, his attention momentarily caught by the contradiction of Wei's presence. The threadbare robe, the unhurried posture amid collective tension, the eyes that observed rather than avoided. That man there, Zhao pointed directly at Wei, breaking protocol with unexpected directness, will be assigned to the first work detail. I'm told he has uniquely perfected the art of avoiding contribution. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some nodded with satisfaction, others averted eyes with embarrassment. Every grain of rice requires a drop of sweat, Zhao continued. Those who eat without sweating steal from those who labor. This will no longer be tolerated. Wei's expression remained placid, though his mind catalogued details with practiced precision. The irrigation plans troubled him. The proposed channels would cut directly across floodplains that appeared stable to unfamiliar eyes. More concerning was Zhao himself, not merely another bureaucrat to be circumvented, but a true believer in systems and control. As the meeting dispersed, Old Tang approached, leaning heavily on his walking stick, white hair translucent in the midday light. They're more determined this time, he whispered, voice textured by 8 decades of village dust. Even I may not be able to protect you. The whispers of men concern me less than the whispers of clouds, Wei replied. Old Tang's white eyebrows rose fractionally. You've seen something? Wei inclined his head slightly. Patterns forming. Something approaches. Weather or human storms? The old man's rheumy eyes scanned the western horizon with lingering acuity. Perhaps both, Wei admitted. The irrigation channels they propose, they cut across the old flood path. Old Tang's eyes widened. It's been 30 years since water flowed there. 32, Wei corrected. I was a boy, but I remember. And the clouds remember too. The old man glanced skyward, seeing only scattered white puffs against blue. I'll speak with the magistrate about the channels. He won't listen, Wei said, observing how Inspector Zhao stood in close conversation with village officials. Imperial authority overwhelms local wisdom as a mountain shadow obscures footpath pebbles. Inside his modest dwelling that evening, Wei selected several scrolls containing springtime observations from previous decades, comparing historical formations with current patterns. The similarities disturbed him. The distinctive cirrus tendrils, the cumulus buildup over western mountains, the particular translucence of afternoon light through atmospheric moisture. If his analysis proved correct, the valley had perhaps 2 weeks before significant flooding threatened, precisely when the irrigation project would be most vulnerable. The time for strategic invisibility had passed. What approached now demanded a more sophisticated uselessness, one that would preserve what mattered, while appearing to surrender what did not. Chapter 2. The Productivity Proclamation. Uselessness is a disease that threatens to destroy our village, Magistrate Lin proclaimed, his gaze finding Wei at the crowd's edge. Midday heat pressed against the gathered villagers. Dust motes hung suspended in the humid air, stirred occasionally by collective breath and shuffling feet. Our esteemed provincial inspector Zhao has brought word that our tributary payments have fallen short 3 seasons running, Magistrate Lin continued. The words resonated differently across the gathered crowd, inducing straightened spines among officials, tightened jaws among farmers, carefully composed neutrality in merchants' expressions. Wei remained still, measuring the magistrate's declaration against the western sky. cloud formations continued their ominous gathering, invisible to those whose attention remained earthbound. Inspector Zhao stepped forward, the leather of his official boots connecting with stone in precise percussion. The Emperor's new agricultural initiatives require complete participation, he explained, unrolling a detailed map with practiced ceremony. Our first project will be expanding the irrigation system to the western terraces. His slender finger traced proposed waterways across the parchment. Teams will be assigned tomorrow. Work begins at dawn the following day. Wei studied the inspector with detached curiosity. Unlike Magistrate Lin, whose irritation with Wei manifested as predictable exasperation, this man radiated something more dangerous, the absolute certainty of one who has never questioned the value of what he pursues. Their eyes met briefly across the crowd. The inspector paused mid-sentence, his attention momentarily caught by the contradiction of Wei's presence. The threadbare robe, the unhurried posture amid collective tension, the eyes that observed rather than avoided. That man there, Zhao pointed directly at Wei, breaking protocol with unexpected directness, will be assigned to the first work detail. I'm told he has uniquely perfected the art of avoiding contribution. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some nodded with satisfaction, others averted eyes with embarrassment. Every grain of rice requires a drop of sweat, Zhao continued. Those who eat without sweating steal from those who labor. This will no longer be tolerated. Wei's expression remained placid, though his mind cataloged details with practiced precision. The irrigation plans troubled him. The proposed channels would cut directly across floodplains that appeared stable to unfamiliar eyes. More concerning was Zhao himself, not merely another bureaucrat to be circumvented, but a true believer in systems and control. As the meeting dispersed, Old Tang approached, leaning heavily on his walking stick, white hair translucent in the midday light. They're more determined this time, he whispered, voice textured by 8 decades of village dust. Even I may not be able to protect you. The whispers of men concern me less than the whispers of clouds, Wei replied. Old Tang's white eyebrows rose fractionally. You've seen something? Wei inclined his head slightly. Patterns forming. Something approaches. Weather or human storms? The old man's rheumy eyes scanned the western horizon with lingering acuity. Perhaps both, Wei admitted. The irrigation channels they propose, they cut across the old flood path. Old Tang's eyes widened. It's been 30 years since water flowed there. 32, Wei corrected. I was a boy, but I remember, and the clouds remember too. The old man glanced skyward, seeing only scattered white puffs against blue. I'll speak with the magistrate about the channels. He won't listen, Wei said, observing how Inspector Zhao stood in close conversation with village officials. Imperial authority overwhelms local wisdom as a mountain shadow obscures footpath pebbles. Inside his modest dwelling that evening, Wei selected several scrolls containing springtime observations from previous decades, comparing historical formations with current patterns. The similarities disturbed him. The distinctive cirrus tendrils, the cumulus buildup over western mountains, the particular translucence of afternoon light through atmospheric moisture. If his analysis proved correct, the valley had perhaps 2 weeks before significant flooding threatened, precisely when the irrigation project would be most vulnerable. Chapter 3. Patterns in the Sky. Wei's fingers moved with studied precision across rice paper, each brushstroke capturing what others would dismiss as mere weather. Dawn's earliest light revealed the true nature of his work. Not idle artistry, but meticulous documentation. The cirrus formations had appeared 3 days too early, their feathered edges signaling atmospheric disturbance, none but he could interpret. 72 hours had passed since Inspector Zhao had appeared at his doorstep with work assignment in hand. 72 hours. Wei had navigated with strategic absence. His methods varied with calculated inconsistency. Appearing at incorrect locations, developing sudden coughing fits that drove others away, once simply becoming invisible along forest paths where work parties feared to follow. The magistrate demands your presence, announced a village guard, voice pitched with particular authority. Now. Wei rose with deliberate unhurriedness, each movement calculated to communicate disinterest rather than rebellion. The guard's frustration thickened the air between them, but Wei maintained his measured pace, using the walk to continue his atmospheric survey. The western clouds had darkened significantly overnight, their bases now tinged with the distinctive violet gray that preceded substantial precipitation. The air carried the metallic undertone of distant rainfall, not yet present in their valley, but already transforming mountain watersheds beyond the horizon. As they approached the village center, Wei observed the irrigation project already underway. The primary channel cut precisely where Wei had feared, directly across land that appeared ordinary to unfamiliar eyes, but had once served as the river's preferred path during seasonal flooding. Inspector Zhao supervised from slightly elevated ground. When he spotted Wei, his expression hardened with the particular satisfaction of a hunter whose prey has finally wandered into view. "Your continued absence has been noted," Zhao said, indicating columns of precise characters in his book. "The magistrate has authorized me to administer appropriate consequences." "I am unwell," Wei replied, voice carefully modulated to convey weakness without obvious performance. "My constitution is unsuited to heavy labor." "Yet you manage walks in the forest," Zhao countered. "Tomorrow you will report to the eastern section. Failure to appear will result in seizure of your dwelling." Wei bowed slightly, neither confirming nor refusing, allowing Zhao to perceive submission while committing to nothing. Released from immediate scrutiny, Wei circled toward the river. The water's color had shifted overnight. No longer the clear green-brown of normal flow, but a muddier ochre carrying soil from distant mountain slopes. Its surface patterns had changed as well, ripples forming differently around protruding rocks, indicating subtle increase in both volume and velocity. "Master Wei!" Little Liu hurried toward him, nearly colliding with his legs. Her hands clutched a familiar cloth bundle. "Father says you haven't been at your usual place. I brought dumplings for trade." "It's unwise to be seen with me today, little one. Because the inspector is looking for you, everyone's talking about how you keep disappearing when work parties come. I have important observations to make." "More clouds?" "Yes, but not only clouds. Come, walk with me to the hillside path. I'll show you something few have seen." They stopped at a small clearing offering unobstructed view across the entire valley. "Watch the river." Wei instructed. "What do you see?" Liu squinted. "It just looks like water flowing." "Look again," Wei urged gently. "Not at what you expect, but what is actually there. See how it pushes harder against the northern bank? How it carries darkness from the mountains?" "It does look angry somehow." "Water has memory," Wei said, voice lowering with essential truth. "It remembers paths it once took. The channel they're digging crosses an ancient riverbed. When heavy rains come, water remembers and returns to its old ways." "How do you know heavy rains are coming?" Wei directed her attention to the western horizon, where dark clouds now towered above mountain peaks. Those clouds speak of distant storms already releasing their burden. Notice how birds fly lower today, how soil smells sharper with coming moisture, how sounds carry differently through air heavy with water it hasn't yet released. As they descended, Liu suddenly pointed toward Wei's dwelling. "They're searching your home." 4 figures moved around his modest hut, Inspector Zhao directing 3 village guards in methodical investigation. Wei felt momentary tension contract his shoulders, then consciously released it. "My important scrolls are well hidden. But your things are few and unimportant," he finished. "This is why I live simply. What cannot be taken cannot become chains." When officials finally departed, Wei returned to his dwelling. They had searched thoroughly, sleeping mat overturned, meager possessions scattered, floorboards examined for obvious irregularities. But their search revealed their fundamental limitation. They looked for conventional valuables, coins, official documents, hidden luxuries, unable to conceive that Wei's true treasure consisted of carefully rendered cloud formations. His fingers found the precisely loose floorboard that matched no obvious pattern, retrieving his hidden scrolls with practiced ease. Comparison confirmed his growing certainty. The current patterns matched those preceding the Great Flood with disturbing precision. Within days, perhaps sooner if mountain precipitation intensified, significant waters would threaten the valley. For 20 years, such knowledge had remained his private domain. Observations recorded but never shared, understanding developed but never applied beyond his personal preparations. His chosen uselessness had included uselessness to others, participation carefully withheld to preserve personal freedom. But Old Tang's words returned unbidden. Your nothing has purpose. What purpose did knowledge serve when sealed away from those who needed it? What freedom truly existed in watching preventable destruction unfold? Outside his window, the setting sun illuminated western clouds in brilliant oranges and reds, beautiful yet ominous. The ancient warning echoed in his mind: blood-red sunset, shepherd's delight; blood-red morning, shepherds take warning. Tomorrow's dawn would bring red skies. Chapter 4. The Wisdom of Uselessness. There are many forms of usefulness, Old Tang said. Afternoon light filtered through rice paper windows, casting geometrical patterns across Old Tang's worn floor. The translucent squares trembled with each distant thud from the irrigation project, Imperial progress percussing against village rhythm. Old Tang's hands trembled slightly as he warmed the small clay teapot. His movements followed ritual precision. Water temperature just below boiling, leaves measured by eye rather than tool. The circular motion as he poured creating a minor vortex in each cup. You've perfected the appearance of uselessness, Old Tang continued. But appearance and reality are separate streams that sometimes flow in opposite directions. Wei lifted his cup, appreciating how the porcelain's heat transferred to his fingertips before the liquid could touch his lips. I choose my own purpose rather than having it assigned to me. Old Tang's eyes, milky with cataracts yet disconcertingly perceptive, studied Wei. And what purpose have you chosen? To watch clouds, to avoid labor, to frustrate officials. To remain free, he said finally, the words feeling simultaneously true and insufficient as they left his lips. Ah. Old Tang nodded slowly. Freedom. The bird envies no one, not even the cloud. Precisely. And yet, the old man's fingers traced the rim of his cup. The bird builds nests. The bird feeds its young. The bird contributes to the forest's harmony. Wei frowned slightly, the expression creating unusual tension in facial muscles habituated to neutrality. I contribute nothing to others' purposes, he said, hearing an unfamiliar rigidity in his voice. That is my freedom. Is that freedom? Old Tang asked, his voice softening to match the diminishing light as clouds passed overhead. Or merely resistance? The question settled in Wei's stomach like cold stones. His customary stillness remained, but the quality of his silence shifted, from chosen tranquility to something approaching momentary paralysis. True freedom, Old Tang continued, includes the choice to help others, not just the choice to refuse. He paused. I once walked a path similar to yours. Wei looked up, surprised. You? Before your birth, I rejected the village's demands. I studied bird migrations instead of tending fields. I claimed my freedom through deliberate uselessness. Wei found himself leaning forward. What changed? Spring floods came early one year. His voice lowered. I had seen signs. Swallows building nests higher on cliff faces, certain insects appearing weeks before their usual cycle. Silence expanded between them, punctuated by the diminishing sounds of labor outside. 3 families lived on the eastern bank then. The Wong family had a daughter your age. Old Tang's knuckles whitened around his cup. I said nothing, guarding my knowledge as private treasure. The river rose in darkness. The child. He did not complete the sentence. He did not need to. You cannot know if they would have listened, Wei said. I cannot know because I never tried. The child's mother still leaves offerings at the river's edge on the anniversary, 27 years later. Wei's throat constricted, the sensation unfamiliar and unwelcome. The inspector and magistrate will not listen to someone they consider worthless, Wei argued, though the conviction in his voice had thinned. Perhaps not, Old Tang conceded. But have you tried? Or do you protect your carefully constructed uselessness more than the village that has, despite everything, provided you shelter for decades? The question struck Wei physically, a sensation of impact against his sternum. He had never considered his relationship with the village in those terms, that in providing space for his chosen isolation, the community had actually supported his freedom. I lived nearly 8 decades, Old Tang continued. I've seen that freedom without purpose becomes its own kind of prison. He reached for the teapot, finding it empty. The truly free man chooses when to be useful and when to refrain, not out of compliance or resistance, but from wisdom. Wei stared into his empty cup, watching the final drops gather at the bottom, forming patterns resembling the clouds gathering over western mountains. What would you have me do? He asked finally. Nothing you do not choose yourself, Old Tang replied. That is freedom's essence. But consider this. Helping others find their own freedom might be the highest expression of your philosophy. Urgent knocking interrupted them. The door slid open to reveal little Liu, chest heaving with exertion, dark eyes wide with alarm. Master Wei! The guards are searching everywhere for you. Inspector Zhao says you'll be publicly punished as an example. Wei rose smoothly, his habitual calmness resettling. Thank you for the warning, little one, and for the tea, Old Tang. The elder nodded solemnly. Consider what freedom truly means, Wei, before the coming waters force a choice upon you. Wei paused. You know? I too have eyes to see, Old Tang said simply, glancing toward the western mountains. Age brings different wisdom, but wisdom nonetheless. When evening approached, Wei climbed toward a vantage point overlooking the valley. Old Tang's words disrupted internal patterns cultivated over decades. For 20 years, he had defined freedom as absence of obligation. Had he merely built a different kind of constraint, one of his own design, but a constraint nonetheless? As he reached the overlook, the view clarified both landscape and thought. The irrigation channel cut a dark line across land that had once been riverbed, now dry but not forgotten by water's persistent memory. In the distant mountains, clouds gathered with ominous purpose. Something shifted within Wei. Not a complete transformation, but the minute adjustment that begins all significant change. The sensation resembled the moment before rain when pressure drops and skin registers atmospheric alteration before conscious awareness. His time for invisibility was ending, not through capture but through choice. Whatever he decided next would make him decidedly visible, to himself as much as to others. Chapter 7. The Useful, Useless Man. The villagers moved with surprising efficiency under Wei's quiet direction. Rain transformed the world into liquid shadow, each droplet carrying a memory of mountain peaks and distant storms. Water rendered all philosophies equal. The distinction between imperial mandate and local wisdom dissolved beneath the relentless percussion of rain against earth. Wei's hands, still blistered from forced labor, now directed critical efforts with calm certainty. Night settled over the valley like a sodden blanket, darkness broken only by occasional lanterns marking work groups. Wei stood atop the village's eastern ridge, rain plastering his thin clothing against his frame. From this elevation, he traced the water's advancing tendrils. Not random destruction, but purposeful reclamation. The eastern channel must be blocked here, he instructed, indicating where newly dug irrigation met old riverbed. Water remembers this path from before our records began. The blacksmith nodded, gathering his crew of younger men. Their skepticism had washed away with the first collapse of the irrigation channel. Magistrate Lin observed from beneath a wooden shelter, his authority temporarily eclipsed by necessity. Inspector Zhao stood beside him, imperial certainty visibly eroding with each confirmation of Wei's predictions. When first light finally seeped through storm clouds, it revealed a transformed landscape. Water surrounded the village like a grasping hand, fingers of flood extending through fields and forests. But the village center remained relatively dry, protected by barriers and diversions placed according to Wei's design. The main flood surge arrived with morning, a wall of water descending from mountain valleys, brown with soil and dotted with debris. Those who witnessed its power understood what would have happened without preparation. The new irrigation channel would have delivered destruction directly to their doorsteps, a perfect conduit for nature's reclamation. As noon approached, the rain finally slackened. Clouds began separating, allowing shafts of sunlight to illuminate the changed valley. Water stretched to the horizon in places where fields had stood yesterday. The irrigation channels lay destroyed, imperial engineering humbled by water's memory. Yet the village itself remained largely intact, buildings standing, food stores protected, inhabitants shaken but alive. The river will recede by tomorrow, Wei told the magistrate. It remembers its true bed now. The irrigation channels can be rebuilt, but they must follow these paths. His finger traced lines on a mud-spattered map, lines that respected water's memory rather than imperial engineering. Magistrate Lin nodded, new humility evident in his posture. Your knowledge saved the village. Knowledge only has value when applied, Wei replied. The simple statement contained both wisdom and confession. Inspector Zhao approached slowly, his immaculate robes now mud-stained and torn. The execution order, he began stiffly, eyes fixed on some middle distance. A murmur rippled through the gathered villagers. Faces darkened, bodies shifted closer to Wei in unconscious protection. Remains in effect, Zhao continued, then paused. However, given the circumstances, I believe a formal review is warranted. Such review requires documentation and witnesses transported to the provincial capital. The process will require significant time given recent infrastructural challenges. The bureaucratic reprieve hung in rain-washed air. Not forgiveness, but strategic delay, the closest imperial authority could come to admitting error while preserving essential dignity. Assessment delays may extend several years, Zhao added, during which normal village activities should continue uninterrupted. Wei inclined his head slightly, accepting the face-saving compromise with characteristic economy. The river has much to teach those willing to observe its patterns. Perhaps Imperial engineering might benefit from local knowledge. Days passed. Floodwaters receded exactly as Wei had predicted. Villagers began rebuilding, repairing, and replanting. Wei returned to his tree, his apparent idleness resuming its familiar shape in village life. Yet subtle changes had occurred. Villagers nodded respectfully when passing his customary spot. The magistrate consulted him on weather patterns before making planting decisions. Inspector Zhao departed with curious scrolls, copies of Wei's cloud records grudgingly commissioned before returning to the capital. Most significantly, little Liu appeared each afternoon, sometimes with friends, sitting beside Wei to learn cloud languages and nature's subtle dialects. The village's children discovered value in different knowledge, in patience that appeared as idleness to hurried eyes. One bright morning, Magistrate Lin approached Wei beneath his tree. The village council has created a new position, he announced. Cloud Reader, with appropriate compensation for weather predictions and flood warnings. Wei's expression remained unchanged, though something flickered briefly behind his eyes. Amusement, perhaps, at formalization of what he had always done. I accept the title. The compensation is unnecessary. The magistrate frowned. All positions require compensation. My compensation is freedom to choose my usefulness, Wei replied, voice carrying neither defiance nor compromise but simple statement of fact. That is sufficient. The magistrate departed, his expression suggesting a philosophical puzzle had been presented without adequate solution. Wei tilted his face skyward, studying cloud patterns with the same attention that had characterized decades of observation. His position appeared unchanged, yet something fundamental had shifted within. Beside him, little Liu traced shapes on a small scroll, her brush moving with increasing confidence as she learned to read nature's writing. Her concentration mirrored Wei's own, the absorption of someone discovering language previously invisible. They think they've made you useful now, she observed without looking up from her work. And so I am, Wei agreed, but on terms that preserve what matters. Freedom? Freedom to choose one's purpose, he corrected gently. His hand moved to adjust her brush angle slightly. True usefulness flows from within, not from without. A merchant passing on the main road paused to observe the unusual tableau. The village's newly appointed cloud reader sitting motionless beneath his tree, apparently doing nothing, while a child practiced brushwork beside him. The merchant's expression registered the particular confusion of someone encountering behavior outside recognizable categories of productivity. Wei noted the merchant's assessment without acknowledgement, his attention remaining focused on high cirrus formations stretching across the northern sky. The pattern indicated 3 days of clear weather before minor rainfall, perfect conditions for the village's replanting efforts. This observation he would share later at the magistrate's evening meeting, his knowledge no longer hoarded but selectively offered. His body registered the particular satisfaction of purpose aligned with nature rather than imposed by external authority. The execution order remained officially in effect, suspended indefinitely through bureaucratic maneuvering. Wei recognized it as the particular compromise systems make when confronted with evidence that contradicts fundamental assumptions. Beneath his tree, the useful, useless man watched clouds gather and disperse, finding freedom in the space between patterns. His existence embodied contradiction that only appeared paradoxical to those who failed to recognize multiple forms of purpose. Knowledge shared created connection without requiring surrender. Purpose chosen rather than imposed maintained freedom while allowing contribution. These truths, like water's memory of ancient paths, had always existed for those willing to observe patterns beyond immediate convenience. The end. Thank you for listening to The Cloud Observer, recorded and published by Millennia Publishing. Visit millenniapublishing.com to explore more stories. Hit the bell icon to stay updated on future releases. Whether you're a longtime fan or a new listener, we appreciate your support and hope you continue to journey with us through more tales to come. Chapter 5. Forced Contribution. The wooden shovel felt foreign in Wei's hands, its rough handle an instrument of captivity. Morning sun beat mercilessly upon the irrigation project, extracting reluctant perspiration from his body, unaccustomed to such exertion. Each breath drew dust into his lungs, soil disrupted by 24 villagers laboring under Inspector Zhao's meticulous supervision. The guards had found him at dawn, surrounding his hut as he returned for scrolls. Now he stood in the village square, his customary solitude shattered by curious onlookers as Magistrate Lin delivered judgment from his elevated platform. Persistent avoidance of communal responsibility cannot be tolerated, the magistrate proclaimed. Behind him, clouds gathered against the mountain backdrop, their formations speaking warnings only Wei could interpret. Inspector Zhao stood nearby, satisfaction evident in subtle adjustments of posture. Example must be made, he stated. The emperor's will extends to every subject, regardless of their presumed independence. Wei kept his expression neutral through practiced discipline, though his eyes tracked the clouds continuously, thickening, darkening, gathering moisture from distant rains already falling beyond the mountains. You will join the eastern section of the irrigation project, Magistrate Lin announced. Under direct supervision, any further attempt to avoid your duty will result in severe punishment. Among the crowd, Wei noticed little Liu standing beside her father. The child's face showed unusual gravity. Nearby, old Tang leaned heavily on his walking stick, eyes conveying silent support. I accept the magistrate's wisdom, Wei said, bowing with precisely calculated humility. And so Wei found himself digging under the midday sun, each movement an unwelcome reminder of confiscated autonomy. The irrigation channel grew steadily through collective labor, cutting precisely where the old floodplain would soon receive waters from the mountains. Deeper here, the overseer instructed, pointing to Wei's section with a bamboo measuring rod. The water must flow evenly. Each thrust of the shovel into earth sent reverberations through overworked tendons. His breath came in shorter bursts, lungs struggling against dust and exertion. A shadow fell across his work. Wei looked up to find Inspector Zhao observing him with the particular intensity of someone studying an unexpected phenomenon. Impressive, isn't it? Zhao gestured to the extensive network of channels. Imperial engineering will increase your village's productivity by 30%. Wei straightened slowly, his lower back protesting. Most impressive, he agreed, studying Zhao's expression carefully. Up close, Wei observed details previously unnoticed. The faint line between Zhao's brows from constant concentration, the slight asymmetry of his precisely trimmed beard, the particular quality of his gaze that revealed genuine belief rather than mere bureaucratic adherence. This was not simply another official enforcing edicts, but a true believer in systems and control. Your resistance puzzles me, Zhao continued. A man of your obvious intelligence should appreciate progress. I appreciate observation before action. Observation without action is worthless, Zhao dismissed. Knowledge serves purpose, or it is merely indulgence. Like digging channels without understanding where water wishes to flow? Wei suggested quietly. Something flickered in Zhao's expression, not anger precisely, but the particular discomfort of certainty momentarily questioned. It disappeared almost instantly, replaced by hardened conviction. Water flows where educated men direct it, not where it wishes. This superstitious thinking keeps villages like yours trapped in mediocrity. When the workday finally ended, Wei's legs trembled with exhaustion as he dragged himself toward his hut. Every muscle fiber announced its existence through discomfort. Yet his mind remained clear, cataloging atmospheric changes with habitual precision. He had nearly reached his dwelling when little Liu darted from between houses. "Master Wei, father is very sick. His stomach pains have worsened." Despite his physical depletion, Wei changed direction without hesitation. Inside his simple dwelling, he selected several dried plants from his modest collection, placing them in a small cloth pouch. As he secured the herbs, Liu's eyes wandered to the rolled scrolls partially visible beneath his sleeping mat. "What are those?" Wei hesitated, then made a decision that contradicted habitual caution. Knowledge that may soon be needed. He extracted one scroll, unrolling it to reveal meticulous cloud paintings. "Do you see these formations? How they layer and build upon each other? When clouds form these shapes over our western mountains, rain follows within days. When they appear in this sequence," he indicated several paintings in succession, "flooding comes." The girl's eyes widened. "And you can read what the clouds say? Like words?" "Like a language few remember," Wei confirmed. "Nature speaks constantly, but most have forgotten how to listen." Wei rolled the scroll carefully, hands protesting the precise movement required. He handed it to little Liu along with the herbs. "Take both to your father. Tell him what I've shown you about the clouds. Tell him to watch the western sky tomorrow. The pattern nears completion." Morning arrived with Wei's body protesting every movement. As the day progressed, Wei noted signs of increasing urgency among the project overseers. Inspector Zhao paced between work groups, demanding faster progress, gesturing frequently toward the darkening western sky. "Your absence has been noted," Zhao accused when Wei returned from a brief disappearance to check on Liu's father. Again, defying Imperial authority. "Nature called," Wei replied mildly. "Even the Emperor must answer such summons." The inspector's face darkened. "Your disrespect knows no bounds. Guards!" 2 village guards appeared, gripping Wei's arms with unnecessary force. "This man has repeatedly obstructed Imperial edicts," Zhao announced. "His defiance undermines the Emperor's will and threatens the project's success." "I invoke Imperial authority," Zhao declared, his entire being transforming. "This subject requires the ultimate example to ensure compliance from others." "Death?" Magistrate Lin's voice lowered to near whisper. "For avoiding labor?" "For persistent, willful obstruction of Imperial mandate," Zhao corrected. "The edict gives representatives full authority to remove obstacles to progress." "So be it," the magistrate finally conceded. "Hold him until the project is complete. 2 days hence, the sentence will be carried out." As Wei was led away, his perception registered 2 parallel realities with equal clarity. His body responded to imminent mortality, heart rate elevated, breathing shallower. Yet simultaneously, his observational habits continued uninterrupted, noting how clouds gathered like mourners at the western horizon, how atmospheric pressure continued its steady decline, how the river's surface had developed the particular texture that preceded significant volume increase. The irony registered fully. His death had been ordered for resisting usefulness, yet his most useful knowledge would die with him unless something changed. Chapter 6. The Coming Storm. "The clouds never lie," little Liu whispered to the small gathering in her father's back room. "And right now they're screaming a warning no one wants to hear." Morning light filtered reluctantly through paper windows. 6 villagers had assembled in the cramped space behind the dumpling shop, shoulders nearly touching in the confined quarters. Liu stood before Wei's unrolled scroll, struggling to maintain its tension with small fingers. "Master Wei showed me how to read them," she continued, voice faltering momentarily. "See how they layer, like fish scales? And these wispy ones that stretch ahead of the dark ones? They mean heavy rain comes soon." The blacksmith leaned forward. "And the useless man knows such things? Through cloud watching?" Liu's chin lifted slightly. "By watching when everyone else is too busy to notice. He sees what we ignore." "Look," Liu interrupted, pointing toward the small window. "The angry clouds are forming now, just like in the pictures." The gathered villagers crowded near the window. The paper-filtered light revealed the western sky's transformation. Dark formations building over mountain peaks, their underbellies tinged with the purple-gray that experienced farmers recognized as harbingers of significant rainfall. "The irrigation channels cut across the old flood path," Liu continued, her voice finding unexpected authority. "When the water comes, It will flow straight to our village. Her small hands struggled to demonstrate. Water remembers old paths, she added. As morning progressed, more villagers arrived. By midday, the shop had become an impromptu meeting place. Children were sent to observe the river, returning with reports that transformed abstract warning into concrete reality. The water runs darker today, a young boy announced, river mud still clinging to his ankles. And faster. It pulled my stick away before I could count to 10. Where is Wei now? The blacksmith asked. He should explain himself. Imprisoned, the dumpling maker revealed, for defying the inspector's orders. Worse, he continued. My wife heard from the magistrate's cook. Wei has been sentenced to death for obstructing imperial edicts. The execution is scheduled after the irrigation project's completion. The news rippled through the crowd like wind through summer wheat. Death for laziness? The blacksmith's voice carried above others. A distant thunder rolled across the valley, the sound penetrating walls and conversation alike. If Wei's warnings proved true? The village midwife left the thought unfinished, her weathered hands absently stroking the protective amulet at her neck. A commotion at the shop's entrance drew their attention. Conversation died instantly as Inspector Zhao entered, flanked by village guards. What unauthorized gathering is this? He demanded. The dumpling maker stepped forward, feigning casual welcome. Customers, Inspector. My shop serves food to hungry workers. Zhao's gaze swept across the room, lingering on Wei's scroll still open on a table. And this? Does your establishment serve artwork with dumplings? Before her father could intervene, Liu stepped forward. They're cloud pictures, sir. They show the flood that's coming. The inspector's attention fixed on the child with cold intensity. What nonsense is this? Not nonsense, Liu insisted. Master Wei has studied the clouds for years. These patterns mean flooding, and the irrigation channels will make it worse. The prisoner's superstitions have infected even children, Zhao observed with disgust. This gathering is dispersed by Imperial authority. Return to your assigned duties immediately. No one moved. Something had shifted in the crowded room, collective concern overcoming individual fear. The river has risen a hand's width since morning, the blacksmith stated. Spring melt. Entirely expected, Zhao dismissed, though his eyes flickered briefly toward the window. The water carries soil from the mountains, added a farmer whose fields bordered the river. It's changed color. Inconsequential. The clouds match patterns from the Great Flood, the dumpling maker said. The same flood that took 20 lives 32 years ago. Thunder cracked directly overhead. Through the windows, darkened dramatically since morning, they could see clouds that had transformed from scattered formations to solid ceiling. The prisoner should be allowed to explain his concerns, the blacksmith suggested. Wisdom may come from unexpected sources. The inspector's laugh held no humor. The prisoner awaits execution for defying Imperial authority. His words hold no weight. Outside, the first heavy raindrops struck the ground, audible impacts that punctuated the inspector's declaration. Within moments, the scattered drops became a steady patter against the roof. A village guard burst through the entrance, water streaming from his hat and shoulders. Inspector, the river rises quickly. Workers report unusual flow in the western mountains. For the first time, Zhao's absolute certainty visibly wavered. How quickly? Like nothing they've seen before, the guard admitted. The new channels are already filling. The sounds above them intensified further, rain drumming against the roof with increasing urgency. We should release the prisoner, the dumpling maker suggested. His knowledge might help us prepare. Absurd, Zhao snapped, though with less conviction than before. As if in response, a tremendous thunderclap shook the building. The steady rain transformed to driving sheets that lashed against windows and doors with unnatural force. Inspector, the guard spoke again. The eastern channel is overflowing already. Water runs toward the village center. Bring the prisoner, Zhao ordered the guards, voice barely audible above the storm's growing fury. But understand, this changes nothing about his sentence. The door burst open, admitting 2 drenched guards escorting Wei. Despite his imprisonment, the useless man appeared remarkably composed. Water streamed from his simple clothing, darkening the fabric but somehow failing to diminish his presence. The pattern completes itself, he observed quietly, voice carrying neither triumph nor alarm. Your cloud predictions appear accurate. Inspector Zhao acknowledged stiffly. What counsel do you offer? Wei moved to the window, studying the sky with practiced assessment. The river reclaims its ancient path, he stated. We cannot stop it, only direct it to minimize harm. How? The eastern channel must be blocked immediately before it becomes a direct route to the village center. Wei indicated specific locations on a rough map. The granaries must be protected with barriers. Low-lying homes evacuated. As he spoke, Wei's voice carried an authority none had heard before. Not loud or demanding, but precise and absolutely certain. The storm will intensify through the night, Wei continued. The main surge will come with tomorrow's dawn. We must work quickly while movement remains possible. Inspector Zhao watched as the village mobilized with surprising efficiency. You understand this changes nothing, Zhao told Wei quietly. Once the crisis passes, the Emperor's justice will be served. Wei nodded, expression unchanging. Freedom includes accepting consequences of one's choices. As they moved toward the door to begin flood preparations, Wei paused beside little Liu. His weathered hand rested briefly on her shoulder, the gesture containing approval more powerful than words could convey. You remembered the cloud patterns perfectly, he said softly. I listened, she replied, the simple phrase containing both pride and determination. The ghost of a smile touched Wei's features before disappearing. So you did,